soybeans are incredibly hard to predict, and they really are. They're really hard to predict. And I'll show you a couple of the conflicting. It's hard to find patterns in the soybean data that are convincing about how we're going to move in the future. Corn's easier. Corn shows a lot of patterns. Corn has very strong seasonality where you can be convinced looking at the data and the patterns about what's going to happen. But soybeans are tough. You get a lot of conflicting stuff. I'm going to show an example. I'm going to do something that's incredibly hard, which is I'm going to take a look at the data on July 12th and just try to predict the rest of the month. What are the patterns that may just predict from July 12th to July 31st? Short-term predictions are really hard. Soybeans are really hard. So we're kind of squaring how hard things are, right? But here's a feature called the Palmer Drought Index. It's an index where if the index is negative, it's really dry. If the index is positive, it's a weather conditions index, a drought conditioned index. And if the index is positive, we're really wet. Sometimes what matters, the patterns we find, is the change in that index over a certain period. In this case, we're going to look at the change for the Palmer Drought Index over the last 3 months. And what we're doing is we're looking at the change so to the right here, things are getting wetter. To the left, things are getting drier. These data points represent the last 28 years. And when things got drier, what happened from July 12th to July 31st? What happened for the rest of July? When things got wetter in those years, what happened for the rest of July? And what we tend to find is this. When things get wetter, when we've had 3 months coming up to July 12th, right, which is like April 12th to July 12th, call it that, when it's gotten wetter over that time, the market continues, beans continue to go down. What's happened is when we're in this range of minus 0.5 or higher, so we've gotten wetter, positive 0.5 or higher, we've gotten wetter, you can see most of the points, beans continue to go down. And right now, we're really wet. Last 3 months, that index has moved to the right a lot. So we've had a lot of wetness in that last 3 months. And when you look at what the points tell you, beans are going down. And that's why I think our models are saying beans are going down. On the other side, when we're drier, beans tend to go up more than they go down, but it's not a lock, right? It's not a lock. You can see there's some points that are down, but the big points are up when we're drier. So there's one thing that's kind of suggesting, given this drought index and the fact that we're a lot wetter over the last 3 months, we'll probably go lower. We've also dropped already, though. Over the last 60 days, we've dropped a lot in beans. We've actually dropped 12% over the last 60 days. And that's not an outlier. We've had years where we've dropped more than 12% from, call it, May 12th to July 12th, kind of 60 days, right? But right now we're at minus 12%. So we've dropped 12% during that period. Do we expect a bounce back, or do we expect things to keep going? Well, if you look at these periods where we've dropped more than 10% over the last 60 days, we have tended to bounce back. That's happened 7 times. We've bounced back 5 of those times. We've kept going down 2. So it's not a perfect indicator, the sort of the bounce back. When you've had such a drastic move down, you get a bounce back. Well, historically, you do get a little bit of a bounce back, but again, not perfect. When you've had kind of a big move up, you do tend to go down for the rest of July. So if we come into July 12th and we've already moved up a lot, we tend to go down a little bit more. But again, not perfect. There are years where we continue to go up, and there are years where we continue to go down. So I just thought I'd throw it out there, why beans are tough and some of the indicators, especially why they're tough in the short term. And I think what our models are telling us is beans are tough. Short term is tough. We've already moved down a lot. Yeah, we're a little bearish, but let's hold and get a little bit more data and see what happens at the end of the month, where the index is going to sell some, and let's see if we should get oversold or be less than oversold when we get to that end of the month.